Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with the Cowgirls. I'm Brett Kruger. This week is a little different. I'm flying solo. A kind of little nostalgia brings me back to a year ago. Remy and I've been doing this for a year, and she's got some prior commitments the next coming week, so I will be doing this on my own again for a while. Um, but with that being said, I do have a really cool young woman guest this morning with me, um, Miss Cali Brookshire. Is it Brookshire, Kelly? Am I saying it right?
Um, a lot of people say Brookshire. I say Brookshire.
Brookshire. Okay,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
wasn't sure. I'm like, I need to ask her about that. Uh, Callie, she's a very talented cowgirl. If you don't know her, a lot of her listeners are team penners and ranch sorters, so they have heard the name or they know her from her many awards, accolades, and achievements in the ranch sorting and team penning world. And I call her um, a young woman, but you're still, you're not even 20 yet, are you, Kelly?
I just turned 20, like last
Just
week.
turned
Yeah.
last week.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, it is hard for me to remember that because I have seen you compete for so long. And I don't even know if it's just I've seen you compete for so long. It's hard for me to remember that because you are already such a high ranking rider. Um, that is
Yeah.
probably the piece that I'm like, I see you at the horse show, I see you with the kids, and I'm like,
hmm
she's still just a kid herself. And that's kind of hard for me
Yeah.
to remember sometimes. And I'm sure that that's hard for you sometime as well.
Yeah. And hard for a lot of other people as well. Like they see me
Mm.
right in, they're like, oh, it's just a kid. We're good.
Yeah, no, actually. Um, Go ahead and introduce yourself, Callie. Tell the folks where you're from and who Cali Brookshire is.
Well, I'm Cali Brookshire. Brookshire. I'm from Crosby, Texas. I go to Texas A&M. I am a sophomore, and I'm studying biomedical science.
No, Kelly, were you homeschooled?
I was
Part of it.
homeschooled a little bit, like kindergarten and first grade, and then I went to a private school.
Okay. Because you grew up on the road.
Yes, ma'am, I did, and I'm still on the road.
Yeah, yeah, still on the road. Um, I think that you might be the youngest guest I've ever had on here, which is really cool. Uh, Lately, I've been into a lot of podcasts. August is a
Mhm.
tough month for me. I don't know why. And I've talked to a few other people, and they say it's a tough month for them too. I think it's because it's the dog days of summer.
Yeah.
I It slows down for us,
hmm
and I'm guessing that you could probably relate a little bit to this because it's your life is very fast paced and you're always
hmm
going. When it gets quiet and there's not a lot going on,
Yeah.
I get a little sad and depressed. And
That's
do you?
that's how I've been the past like couple weeks since elite finals because I haven't been anywhere and like there's no shows to go to and everyone's kind of going back to school. So and I don't go back till the 20th, so I'm just
I
kind of
mean, I'm
here.
not glad to hear that you're in that way, but I am because I know I'm not alone. But
Yeah.
man, it's been a real struggle for me. And so I've been listening to, when I get this way, I have to listen to a lot of podcasts to
hmm
pull myself back up. And so I've been listening to a little bit of everything. I've found a couple real interesting ones. Before I talk about what I'm going to talk about, I want to tell you this though, because you're in the same area. Um, there's a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, and he owns Vaynerchuk Media. He's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Drops the f bomb a lot, so you have to be willing and able to listen to that kind of stuff.
hmm
But super
Hmm.
educated guy. He is so smart when it comes to marketing. Um, has some really cool insight on entrepreneurship, which I love. And I was listening to one of his podcasts the other day, and he said um, he thrives and is at the most peace when it's chaos.
Yep.
And when it's slow and there's not a lot going on, he's sad and depressed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is That is me.
That yep,
Um,
that way too, for
it's
sure.
most people think that it's crazy when you say shit like that because they're like, how you, I mean, you're going this way, you're going here, you're going there, you've got a million different irons in the fire. I think if you grew up like that,
Yeah. I enjoy it, you
I
know?
do too. I do too.
I
I
like
like
knowing what I'm
having a
gonna
lot of
do.
things
Yeah, exactly. I like knowing what I'm gonna do and, like, having to go do something and just being busy all the time. I enjoy it.
because I think that it keeps your mind like, well, for
Mhm.
people like us, and you probably are a little ADHD too,
A little bit, yep.
a little bit. It keeps your mind
Busy.
busy so you don't think about all of, like, I think of the most irrational things right now, and
As
that's
do I.
probably what I'm just like, gosh, I just can't wait until life picks back up again because this is terrible.
Mhm.
Anyhow, one that I did listen to, that's, he's a little controversial figure, but it was a really good interview. Is with I really like the Converse Cowboy, and he interviews a lot of rodeo athletes,
Mhm.
musicians, different figures in the Western industry. And he recently interviewed Rocker Steiner, and I wanted to hear Rocker's story because
Mhm.
he does bring a lot of lights to himself, good, bad, ugly. He brings
Yeah,
it all.
for
Um,
sure.
but he, I don't know if you know much about him, but he was a professional wakeboarder
Mhm. Yep.
from like the time he was 7.
Yeah.
So as I'm listening to it, it made me think a lot of the kids in our sport because we do have a lot of talented kids
Mhm.
or kids who have already come up through our sports who've been very good from a young age.
Mhm.
And that probably comes with a lot of pressure,
Yes.
understanding how to handle the pressure. Um, listening to Rocker, he went, he turned to saddle bronc when he was 13, but he had already had a world championship wakeboarding
Yeah.
under his belt. Um, so he said by the time he was 16, he felt that he could have already been riding in the NFR, but of course they won't let you until you're 18.
Mhm.
He said, I know I could have rode at that level. I was that good already, but they wouldn't let me. And a lot of people know the story of him at the NFR this year when he did not score as high. His
Mhm.
emotions took over a little bit, but that kid is used to winning.
Yep.
So I get that. I get. Do I think that it was great what he did? No. Do I have a child or two that would probably do the same thing he did? Yes. And it's not because they were raised wrong or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's because they're still kids. He's still a kid.
Mhm.
He's still trying to figure this out. So I'm like, it would be it'd be fun to have you on today to talk
Yeah.
about all of that and
Mhm.
how you handled it and what it looked like for you. Because when did you get moved to a 9? What age? In USTPA, a 9 is the highest rating for those of you who do not know.
It was sorting was probably when I was 16 or 17, and pinning wasn't until last year, so 19.
Now, when did you start riding competitively?
When I was 9, so 11 years ago, it was like 8 and a half, almost 9, so
So,
but
did you grow up with horses or
I've been riding horses since I was 3. Like, I rode English and did jumping and dressage and stuff like that, and then when I was 8, I moved over to Western and then went to, like, a little sorting out here and then just got hooked and kept with it.
um, I think that for young riders just getting started, riding English first is such a great way to get into it. And I look at how many English riders they started out on the English side and have now since crossed over because it is kind of like an adrenaline rush. I mean,
Mhm.
Sarah Dawson came from the eventing world. She
Yeah.
was a high level eventer, and now look at her. She's a multi-million-dollar cow horse trainer.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so then after that, because you primarily, you write all the associations, but you primarily stick to USTPA. And was that the first one? Like when you started, was that what you were in?
I started RSNC for, I think I wrote it straight for 2 years, and then they were like, "Oh, you should go try and pen." So I went to a USCPA show, and I just found penning a lot more enjoyable.
You like the speed.
I like the speed a lot more than, and I don't know, there's just different things that can happen in penning. It feels like sorting can, like, sometimes be the same thing over and over again. In penning, it's always something different.
It's funny everybody's outlook on that, like the sorting versus the penning. um, excuse me. Still getting over whatever I had 2 weeks ago from Utah, whatever we
Oh
drugged
my
off from
god.
Utah.
Yeah.
Um,
Wisconsin.
you had it too.
Yeah, Cali, little Cali, uh, and someone else we were riding with got it, and it was, yeah, it wasn't fun.
No, it isn't fun. Uh, Gosh darn it, I had a question that I wanted to ask you now regarding that, and give me a second here.
All good.
Um, I am like totally drawing a blank at what I was
Blanking.
going to say into my next transition here. Uh, oh, so your mom and dad, like when this whole thing started, Callie, they were just all in on Callie doing this.
It was, so my mom actually took me the first 2 years probably, like, she hauled me everywhere, did everything with me, and then they both went, and but it's primarily, like, my dad likes to go a lot 'cause I don't know, he likes to see everybody and everything, and
But
my
they
mom
love to
will
watch you ride, is what it comes
go.
down to.
Mhm. And, like, he can watch me on the live feed here, but I think he'd rather go sometimes, and, but yeah, it started with my mom, actually, which is weird because she only goes to some of them now because she hangs out with friends here and just watches on the live feed.
Um, your mom and dad are not horse people, are
No.
they?
Mm-mm. Nope.
No. So they did this all for you,
Mhm.
which is amazing. And um, you like one of my questions was because I think about this a lot, Callie, and I
Mhm.
have a definite answer. You have had a lot of wins, but for you, is it? I mean, the wins are very helpful because they help pay the
Mhm.
bills.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, do you remember the the road or the miles and memories made on the road, or do you remember the win?
Most of the time, I remember the people and the memories and stuff like that, like, from shows. You know, like, I could probably tell you which classes I won in certain shows, but it'd be harder to grasp. It's easier to remember, like, who I hung out with, what we did, where we went,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. It's just the people make it more enjoyable. Like, the wins are great, like, the big wins are super amazing, but in the end, you really remember the memories you've made at each show, in each venue. Like, you can drive by and be like, "Oh, one time, me and so went and did this here," and stuff like that.
I know, like for me, I remember the road trips to wherever we go. I don't necessarily always remember how they did, but I remember what it took to get there or
Mhm.
what it was like on the way there.
Yep.
And those are probably my fondest memories are the time spent in the truck.
Mhm.
Most times. Sometimes it can get a little hairy and dicey, but most times. Um, Talk about how you because you came on so fast and it is in anything, in
Mhm.
any sport or activity, youth have a tendency to pick it up faster than an adult because of their muscle memory, the
Mhm.
way their brain functions. It is just, there's no doubt that it is easier for a youth
Mhm.
to perform and compete
Yeah.
because their mental capacity too doesn't think of things like an adult does. And they generally don't hold back at whatever they're doing. But
Mhm.
talk about that for you and how you handled the pressure or didn't handle the pressure over the years.
So I've always been a super competitive person. Just it wasn't even the way I was brought up. It was just like I've always wanted to be in the top. Like I wanted to try my best at everything. Like I started riding horses, snow skiing, and water skiing at the same time. Like I've always been doing things. And whenever it came to sorting and pinning, it just I picked it up easier, as you said, being a youth. And I just always wanted to win. Like I have that drive to make me want to do better. Like getting moved up, I don't mind. Like I want to be a higher
You
rating.
wanted that.
I want to be better. I want to, I don't
Yeah,
want to let
you
my
wanted it
partners
because it
down.
meant that you were better.
I don't want to let my partners down because we're all paying an entry fee, and I don't want to be the person that
Mhm.
holds us back. I get mad at myself if I do mess up, and I'll go out and say I'm sorry. It was my fault. Um, but just over the years, it's been getting easier. But in the beginning, it was really hard when I would lose, especially with my dad. He was also super competitive. He was a professional water skier, so
Oh, really?
he's super competitive. So he would drive me to do better, which would make it harder because in one class I'd do bad, and he'd be like explaining things to me, and I'd go into another class with that mindset, and it just wouldn't work out. But over the years, it's been easier to put one class behind me, move on to the next one, sort of thing. And I think it's just growing with my competitiveness. Like I still get frustrated, but I'm easier to hide it now, I think, and control it than I was.
It's a really hard thing to do.
It is
Um,
very hard.
and every competitor is so different in how they handle that.
Hmm.
And oh, am I back,
You're back. You're good.
Kelly?
Yep.
Um, I think it's hard sometimes because if you are one of those extreme competitors, you have to kind of let that anger out a little bit.
Hmm.
It's really not great to hold it in. It is hard to figure out how to do that in
Yeah.
a good way.
Exactly. You don't.
Um,
I'll walk off by myself and like put my horse in the stall and just kind of be by myself for a little bit. So I'm not around people, but it's hard to figure out how I need to let out because after a couple classes, you just get frustrated and you don't know how to fix it, and there's nothing to do with
yeah,
that
and look
anger.
at the level that you're at. Now look at somebody on my level. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get them next weekend. I'm getting pretty freaking tired of saying that because it's not happening, Callie.
We've all been there. It's just
Um, that was one of the other things that I was gonna ask you is like, it doesn't matter if you go a little or if you go a lot.
mhm,
Everybody's gonna have their peaks and valleys, their
mhm,
highs and their lows over time. And
mhm.
how do you mentally get through? I mean, you can't win every time.
You can't.
So how are you getting through those low points? And I'm sure that, and I also want to know, did that get easier or harder as you got older?
So honestly, I don't know if it got easier or harder because I can remember the past couple years where I've had like 3 shows in a row where I'm just like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I feel like I'm not doing much wrong, but it's just not coming together. And
You were having a Rocker Steiner moment.
I was it like this past year. I had 3 shows in a row where I was just like, "What?" Like in the 9 elite sort, I'd have 8 back to the second round and wouldn't get any in the top 10, and I'm like, "What am I doing wrong?" Like I don't get it. But I think
It's
being
not
around
necessarily. Go ahead.
I think being
Sorry.
around other people helps a lot, like friends, having friends there and knowing afterwards, "Oh, we're all gonna go hang out, we're all gonna go get dinner," and just get your mind off of it sort of thing, and then come back the next day, like, refreshed and being like, "Okay, I'm gonna just slow it down, go back kinda to the basics, do things one step at a time instead of trying to do everything at once."
And the reality is that sometimes it's just, you have to have a little luck. You
Yes.
do have to have a little luck.
Yes.
And you can be riding your ass off and doing all of the right things, and it just doesn't come together. And that is so hard to understand, and it is so frustrating. And
Hmm.
it's really hard to keep your head up and be like,
It just
power
wasn't
through.
easy, you know? Because I like finding
But
like the
you have to
go ahead.
go ahead.
I like finding the things like I did wrong and I can do better. And it's just hard when you can't find those things because it's just the luck you had. You
I
know,
know.
it's just like,
Because you feel like there should be something.
hmm,
There should be something that I was doing wrong. Or I mean, look at that when they did the bracket deal in Utah,
hmm,
Kelly, or um you had to be fast
yep.
when they pinned the teams against each other.
Hmm.
I mean, there were teams that were running under 30-second runs, and they're like, oh, nobody's going to beat them. And the next team walks in and runs they needed to be under a 26, and they were
Yeah.
24. I mean, point that you could say to other youth as that maybe would help them out, Callie?
Um, just never let people look down on you. Because I know being a youth and also being a girl, it's been like rough. Because like I walk in the pen and people will be like, oh, I'm going first. And I'm like, well, actually, I think I should go first, after getting better through the years. And it's
I'm
just
sure
that,
that that was a hard call for you to make. I'm sure that that wasn't easy talking to some of them people like that. And I'm not saying it from a rude standpoint. I'm saying that you were 16 years old and you're like, I'm going to do this.
yeah, you're like, I think I should start. And some people, they know me, but other people, they don't. And so it's hard because they're like, oh, I'm going to start. And I'm like, well, actually, I think I should. And it's just, that's the most nerve wracking thing sometimes, telling someone that I think this is better when they think something else is better. And just getting through that part. And then just every time you mess up, I go watch everything and I'll see what I did wrong. And I'll take that and move on to the next show and come in with a more like a positive attitude and be like, okay, I know what I did wrong here. So I'm going to fix it here. And just always going in somewhere looking up instead of looking down at the last show I did. I think that's always helped me as well.
Do you think that, well, do you think, and did you get treated differently, Callie, because you moved up so fast?
I think so. Yeah.
Like in a good way or bad way, or it was hard for people to understand?
Some in a good, some in a bad. I think some people would, just be like, oh, it's just because she goes to a bunch of shows and gets lucky all the time. And they would make excuses for it and not think it's actually me getting better, just thinking it was my luck. Um, and some people, they get jealous and they won't ride with you or they make snarky comments and it's just, you got to deal with it.
Yeah. Um, I do believe, though, like a lot of people probably have a different opinion than me, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But if you're able to handle that kind of pressure, that kind of comments, if you've been trained to do that from a young age, it makes you a stronger individual.
I think it
Because
does.
you're going to run into those things
Mhm.
when you are in college and you go get a professional career. You're going
Mhm.
to run into those people. Those people don't go away. And if you have the capability to deal with that now, it's going to make you such a better adult.
Mhm.
We've young girls. I'm glad that I have boys most days. Don't think that I could handle those girls, Callie. Whew,
Some of
there's a
them are.
lot that comes with them.
There is.
And recently, there was some controversy in our small town with some young girls, and I tell you, the moms were mad, the grandmas were mad, and I'm like,
Gosh.
settle down. Everybody needs to settle down. I'm like, this is how I see it. I'm like, if they're able to listen to those comments now, laugh, turn around, and walk away, and be
Mhm.
better because of it, that's a really good tribute to have. Like, because those same comments are going to be said when they're 18, when they're 20, when they're 25. If they
Mhm.
know how to handle them now when they're 14, look at how much further ahead than they are in most. Because most people, when they hear things that one would not want to hear, it would break them
Yeah.
and put them maybe to a point where they'd have to go see a therapist. Or, I'm not even lying, I know the society today, and young adults cannot handle the things that are said. They want to
Mhm.
say them, but they cannot handle them. If you can handle those things at a young age, feel like it sucks, but that is life, and
It'll go on.
it'll go on, most definitely. Um, that is that is one of the things that Brandon said about competing in Utah was that he really, I mean, I'm sure that he wanted to be at the rodeo too. I don't know many open riders who wouldn't have wanted to be there.
Mhm.
Um, but Brandon had made the comment, I really want our boys to make it there because that is great practice, great everything
Mhm.
to compete in front of that large of a crowd. Like, to get that experience under your belt at a young age is so good because if it,
Mhm.
you've been there, Callie, you've competed in front of a large stage
Mhm.
from a very young age. Do you think that it was easier when you were littler than it would have been if you would have started in your 20s, like a
I
time
think
that
it
you haven't even entered yet, hardly?
Yeah, I think it was easier when I was younger because you're just like, "Oh, I'm going in front of all these people." Like, you don't really get the nerve that you
As a
do.
competitor, you probably liked it.
Yeah, well, yeah, loved it, and now, like, I go in front of, another crowd, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm a little nervous." I used to never get nervous about these things, but now I'm a little nervous.
Really, it's changed for you.
Mhm.
Interesting. Interesting. I was going to ask that about, like, I feel like, well, my kids, they don't pay their bills. Um, they don't have the pressure of that. Obviously, I don't, I can get down on them sometimes, but I don't ride their ass because my biggest fear is that they won't do this. If I ride their ass, that they won't want to ride horse and compete anymore. And I do not want that. And I've seen that growing up as
Mhm.
a kid who showed. I've seen that happen to so many other youth competitors. And I was just like, I will never be that parent to my kid.
Mhm.
Some days I probably need a little reminding of that, but for the majority of the time, I don't feel like we tell them what they're doing wrong and get after them if they're not riding very smart because it does cost a lot of money. But we
Mhm.
don't ride them, and if they don't want to ride, they don't have to ride. That's the deal. So they don't have a lot of pressure on them when it comes
Yeah.
to financial responsibility or they have to win for us. I mean, we don't do that. But
Mhm.
I have a feeling as they get older, um, they're probably going to find that pressure a little more because
Mhm.
they're going to have to take some more responsibility as far as the financial and all of that. Did
Yeah.
you find that for yourself? Like, as you got older, did the pressure probably started building a little bit more?
Yeah. Like, I still had pressure back then, but now it's a different sort of pressure. Like, I feel like in the past, it'd be like I'd have pressure on me to do good. Like, my dad would be like, you know, "You need to do good," stuff like that, and now I think I put enough pressure on myself for that because I'm riding through my own bank account, and I have to think about those things before I go to a show. I'm like, "If I enter this class and this class, like, I'm already down this much," and I
Shit, I hate that.
yeah, it's it's not fun, but I mean,
That's
still,
right.
yeah, puts that same pressure on me to win, you know?
Yeah, and I suppose that you had to learn how to deal with that pressure of paying your own bills too, because that's something
Mhm.
that you've never had.
Yeah, it definitely changed perspective on some things, like going from riding full in some classes to being like, "Oh, I'm only gonna pick 3 here, and I'm gonna pick 4 over here," not riding as much, and then seeing how the day goes before I determine if I'm gonna ride full the next day, you
Yeah.
know? It's
And those were probably some questions that you had to answer too with your fellow competitors because they're not used to seeing you be that way. So
yes,
they're probably like, what's going on? And then you're like, well, I'm now footing my own bill. So I
that's
have
how it
to make
was
my own
at elite
decisions.
finals too, because people were like, "Why aren't you riding full?" And I was like, "Well, I'm on my own money now, and I'm gonna only pick a select few rides and see how that goes."
I get that. Well, for our kids, I mean, we've spent, your dad and mom can attest to this, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money on entry fees.
Mhm.
And the way I feel about entry fees is if they pay their own bill, then they get to keep it. If they do not pay their own bill, it's going into all the other things that we fund for them,
Yep.
going right back in there. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do that, but that's the way I feel about it. And I have to say, Callie, before we go into our next topic, and that's your career path, but you know, I really, I've always strongly believed in the youth, and I've strongly believed that the only way to get better is riding with better youth. And I will never forget, you know, yourself and Cody Ward have done a lot for this sport when it comes to the youth. You guys ride hard, you ride in all the classes, but yet when you were youth competitors, you always made time to ride that class.
Mhm.
And that, being able to ride with people of your caliber, for some of those youngsters, mine included, that's how they got better. That's how they get better.
Mhm.
And I love that. You ride, or you used to ride, just as hard in the youth class as you did in the open. So um, I appreciate everything that you've done. I will never forget the time that you guys won. I think it was with Bronson, maybe Bodie, the tussle in the Tucson.
That was Bronson. Yeah,
Tucson. He was tiny then.
he was. Yeah.
So you've done great things. Now, how different and weird has it been for you making that transition from private school to college, like choosing your career path? Because I feel like that right there is a troublesome thing in today's society for kids of your age.
Yes. So, like, a lot of my friends I know, they're like, "I don't know what I wanna be," but I've known probably since I was, like, 6 that I wanted to be a vet. I've just always enjoyed things like that, and I've worked with multiple vets over the summer, and I just love that kinda thing. So and I just wanna be an equine vet. Like, I don't think I could deal with small animals.
You're very
Um
specified.
Yes, I don't know, I've just been thinking about it for a long time, and so the classes I'm taking are all super like, they're all science classes. So it's been last year and, like, the first semester was rough, just trying to transition shows and studying and stuff like that, and, so it's definitely different going from high school to college. Like, you still get some leeway in college, like, if I write them a letter and be like, "Hey, I'm going to this show," like, it's a competitive, like, you win and stuff like that, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead." But professors don't care if you miss class, so they're not gonna send you the work you miss. You have to find someone, get them to help you with notes,
Yeah.
and it's just a whole ordeal. And, I mean, the professors do not care how you do in class at all. So, like, you show up or you don't.
Well, it's the responsibility piece that you probably got from the horses that is carrying
Mhm,
over on into that. But you also have a very clear cut and concise path that you want to follow. So that also makes it easier. And you
mhm,
have for a long time, the way it sounds. I feel like in today's society, it is different from when, I mean, I'm 41, so it's been a long time since I was 20 and going through what you're going through. But when I was making those decisions out of high school, you were told that you were going to go to school, that going to college is the path that you needed to take to get a good job, to do all of the things, to have the happy lifestyle. That is
Mhm.
what you needed to do. And you pretty much needed to know when you were a junior in high school exactly what you wanted to do. Um, but nowadays, there's so many different opportunities.
Mhm.
Entrepreneurship is a really big thing for a lot of these kids. Trade schools are such a big thing for these kids, but most of them don't know or don't have a clue, like your friends, what they want to do, and then they're forced into college. And I see so many of them that are switching career paths
Mhm.
midway through, switching schools, dropping out of schools. Folks, it's freaking expensive to do that.
Yes, very. It's it's been nice knowing what I have to do, and but looking at other people, it they definitely have a hard time with knowing what they're gonna do, what they wanna do, like, what they enjoy, so they usually just go into something that is easy, and they get a job that they don't like very much.
So what is the plans for Cali once you get done with this? Do you know?
I wanna work under a vet for a couple of years, I think, and I wanna move out of Texas, and then,
Where
uh,
would you go, Cali?
somewhere north, somewhere not this hot.
You want to be in the cold.
I'd wanna be in the cold.
Really? That's interesting.
I do not like it down here.
For those of you who don't know, Cali lives by Houston, so southeast Texas. It is probably, what is the temperature there right now?
I don't know right now, it's probably 95, but it gets to, like, 104 these past couple days. It's been hot and humid.
Wow.
Yeah, not very fun. And our Christmases are, like, 75 and sunny.
You know, we were talking about that last night because there's 137 days until Christmas. Doesn't sound like that many.
No.
Um, and we're in Arizona by that point, and I love Christmas, Kelly. I've always loved Christmas.
Yeah.
I love the decorating. I love the buying the presents. I love the cooking. I love all of
Mhm.
it. Love the Hallmark movies. But once we made the transition to Arizona, it just doesn't feel like Christmas. So I don't hardly do any of it.
Yeah. It's hard for it
I
to feel
get
like
that.
Christmas. Yeah. So we sometimes go snow skiing or something in, like, Colorado around that time, so it feels more like winter
Mm.
because it's usually you can go out on the boat here during that time, so
Yeah, yeah. I feel you. I don't love that either because I like the feel of Christmas.
yeah.
Um, what do you think that, like, growing up a competitor and doing all the things that you did with horses, and how did that help prepare you for school?
I think it taught me a ton of responsibility, like, having to care for the horses and, like, they're my responsibility. I have to do everything with them, keep them exercised, keep them ready to go, pack my stuff, fix my rides, stuff like that. It's just made me, like, you don't have my parents have never had to tell me, "Go do your homework." Like, I've always been the person who's, like, on top of it. I'm ahead. You don't have to tell me to study because I wanna make the good grades and stuff like that. So, I
It
think
must be a girl thing. I don't know. The boys sure don't have that.
I know a lot of people I went to high school with weren't like that at all. They'd be like, "Oh, let's go hang out and do this stuff." But I'm always like, I need to study because I had to keep all A's to be able to keep going to shows. So I've just never had to be told what I need to do. Like, I did my college applications, you know? It's just I think horses played a big role in helping me succeed in being responsible in things and teaching me, uh, like, different social skills as well.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
having to talk to so many different people, like, meeting so many different people and being
I get
respectful and
that.
stuff like that, that's helped me a lot.
I think that that is probably the greatest blessing and the greatest thing that horses have done for my kids, because we get that a lot about how they are socially.
Hmm.
And if you go to their school and you look at the other kids where they're similar ages or in the same grades, very socially awkward. And I
Yeah.
don't feel like that about my kids, but horses, I think we can owe that all to horses
Hmm.
as
For
well.
sure.
So are you forever a competitor, Callie? You think that, I know it's probably too soon to tell, but you
I
think
think
that
so.
you'll hang up your hat ever with the riding? Or,
Um, I think it'll slow down, but I don't think I'm gonna stop. I think I enjoy it too much. Like sometimes in school, I'll be like, man, I need to go to a show. Like it, I need to see everybody and just get my mind off things because it's just what I enjoy. Like it's my hobby, Like people go out and play soccer, play tennis, go throw the football around. I want to go ride a horse.
right. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have to slow down a little bit because you're going to be going through, um, well, I'm sure that you'll have to take, help me out here. What is that? Internship?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
To do that.
Internship. And then how much longer of college do you have left?
7 years.
Oh, shit.
Three more of uh 3 more normal ones and then 4 years of vet school. Yeah.
Wow. Um, what is something that comes easy for some, but you have to work on?
Um Probably school, if I'm gonna be honest. Like some people they hear something once and they know it. I'm the one of the people I hear it in class, I write it down, I go to the library, I sit down, I reread everything I wrote down, and then I write it all down again because it just school has never come easy for me, so I've always had to study extra, which I still make the grades, but it's just tougher for me. And so I think that's the main thing that I struggle with that a lot of people don't have to struggle with.
Kelly, yesterday, Brandon was giving me a geography lesson and he started laughing and he goes, "Just how many classes did you fail when you were in college?" And I was like, that is none of your business, Brandon. I wasn't a great student. I had a lot of fun though. I
Yeah.
did have a lot of fun. Um, I was. Are you on LinkedIn, by the way?
On what?
LinkedIn. You know, last year I was such a. It's a business. It's a social business networking. It's like, it is like Facebook for business professionals.
Ah, gotcha.
And but you should go check it out, Callie, because it's something that may help you.
Okay.
The networking thing. I was on my high horse all last year about it. I talked about LinkedIn all the time, and I was trying to use it for good things. And then the last thing I did with it was 8 months ago. I'm like, oh, I struggle with consistency. I feel like I'm so consistent in some parts and things of my life, but
Mhm.
the things that, because social media is hard, but it is relevant in our world today, and it can help you so much in business if you use it the right way.
Mhm.
But it's hard to know how to use that. It's
Yeah.
hard to think of the things to say. It's hard to figure out how to interact with people on there because we were not taught that. So
Mhm.
I was thinking of that. Where does your motivation come from?
I don't, I don't really know. I think it's always just been wanting to do better, wanting to be like perfect and wanting to do things the right way and wanting people to like me, sort of thing, wanting to be the likable person. And that's always pushed me to become a better person. And then just competing, I guess, just wanting to win, I like that feeling and I like competing in itself. So,
Yeah. That is funny that you say that about you want to be the likable person. Like, um, I think that Yeah, well, there is a handful of people who don't care, people like them. But I think that that is what a lot of people do strive for. And that can also be hard too because sometimes it's hard. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and it's hard to understand.
Hmm.
You'll figure that out later in life. The older you get, Callie, the less or the more you'll be like, I'm. It's okay. I get it. I don't. But there's a certain point in your life where you try really hard, and it's hard to understand why you aren't that person's
Hmm.
cup of tea
Yeah.
or what you're doing wrong. That is interesting because I feel like that is something a lot of young people put a lot of pressure on themselves about.
Hmm.
What was your favorite win?
It would probably have to be the elite finals last year with Sophie and Chris. It was definitely the biggest win, and I don't know, just the atmosphere of it. Like you had people watching, and you had like the bull riders and stuff like that there, and it was just so like it was just so much fun to win. Like
Was that a pick team or a draw team?
it was a pick.
Was it?
Hmm.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
and going through 4 rounds, it was rough, but it, it worked out.
It's awesome. Where's your favorite place to compete?
That would probably either Vegas, that arena in Vegas, or
South Point.
yeah, or Garwood up in Ohio. That one is also a good arena.
So I was gonna ask your favorite season, but I'm guessing it's winter time or
Yeah.
fall.
Winter, 100%.
Really? So like you want to live in the Midwest, Callie?
I want to live like, I don't know. I've always loved like Colorado and stuff like that. So maybe around there. I don't
I'm
know.
like, I just don't know if I can see you as a Minnesota girl or like in the like I don't know, Callie. Maybe you just want to like come for the weekend and check it out and see what you think. I'm like,
I've
what?
always loved like the cold and snow, and because we'd go like a week every year to Colorado during the winter, and
So you are used to driving in it. You understand
oh
how
yeah.
that is. Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, I don't even know if I could really drive in it anymore. A, I don't drive a lot anymore, which is really bizarre because I used to put on 1,000 miles a week.
Yeah.
I worked in my corporate job. I drove all over. I had a little Ford Escape that I drove. I mean, I was out in South Dakota all the time. I drove it on the worst roads possible, going pretty damn fast, and I was
Yeah.
pretty good at it. It's like being in an ice skate. And now I don't, I don't think I could do it. I have
It's
no desire to do it.
yeah. It'll snow like an inch, if that, down here, and we close everything.
Dangerous. It's very
Everything.
dangerous.
Schools closed. Like shopping centers are closed. The electricity goes out.
Over an inch.
It'll be like 30 something degrees, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" They'll go sledding out back, like down the frost.
I don't remember when it was, but it was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We had so much snow in the month of January, Kelly. The kids only had school, I think, maybe for the whole month, maybe 5 whole days.
Oh my gosh.
They, yep. I mean, the whole month was just like shut down. We were, we hardly ever got out of our house. You couldn't because the roads were like literally snowed in. You were snowed in. The only way you got off of your property was by snowmobile. And I remember it so well because we were so excited one weekend it wasn't snowing and they were able to get us plowed out. We went to the Mall of America. Haven't, but it was like our big trip. I mean,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, we had a week off of school because it like snowed a little bit, and then everything like froze. So people saw
Yeah,
ice and they were like, "Oh my god, we can't drive in this." It
yeah.
was like we would just go, like we could drive anywhere because it wasn't bad at all. But everyone was just like stores were ransacked, like everything was off the shelves. I was
It
like,
was like COVID again.
what are we doing? Like, we can still drive places.
Oh, yeah, people kind of lose their minds when that
They
happens.
do.
Well, thank you so much, Callie, for coming on with me today. You are an amazing young woman, a very talented competitor, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, especially being a youth. I think that there's a lot of things that the youth, the young adults, it's good to get advice from other young adults because
Mhm.
there's a lot of different challenges that you guys face today and how you handle things is differently. I do think that there's a lot to be said about being a youth competitor in anything and coming up as that because you are put in positions that you would not normally be put in.
Mhm.
It's easier to handle your emotions, the pressure as you go into college and start to figure life out.
Thank you so much for having me, Brooke. I appreciate
Yeah, yeah. I hope your dad enjoyed it.
it. I'm sure you
He's
will.
hanging out on the counter drinking his coffee, listening, is he?
No, he's in the other room. I made him
Oh,
leave.
well, thank you again and best of luck in college. And when's your next show?
This weekend, I will be in Illinois. I'm flying
Oh,
up there.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. Well, good luck, Callie, and we will talk soon.
Thank you.
Until next time, girls. Bye.